the core foundation is that you're constantly always trying to grow as fast as you can and just soak in as much knowledge wherever it is, not have a complacent mindset where you sort of accept that your current state of the world is, as it is, and you're always gonna try and, even if you don't want to move to the next level in your career, you still want to grow either as an engineer or a person. Once you have those technical skills, then it comes down to the behaviors and what you decide to do with those technical skills, because you could just have technical skills and just do exactly what you're told, and only that. You're not going to get promoted to senior that quickly if you just do that. So in my case, I would boil it down to probably two key things that I did. The first one was I felt like I exhibited extreme ownership. And so from that perspective, like anything that I saw that could be improved, I dove into it. I didn't view anything as being blocked by the fact that I'm a junior or mid-level engineer. I would always, bring ideas to the team or to my manager. One month I might ship literally like 25 PRs, and another month I might be writing an AI strategy doc where I ship like 3 PRs, and I barely have time for any coding. So it just doesn't make sense, to be measuring that stuff. That's where I think the vanity metrics come in with like lines of code too.
Hey, welcome to the Scalekit podcast. I'm Ravi. I'm one of the co-founders of Scalekit. Scalekit is an auth stack for AI applications. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Jordan Cutler, staff software engineer at Pinterest, where he leads web platform engineering for over 500 million monthly users. More importantly, Jordan is also the author of one of the most popular engineering newsletters called High Growth Engineer that's being read by almost 100,000 engineers all over the world. Jordan, I'm excited to have you here.
So happy to be here, and it's great to meet you, Ravi.
Before we talk about anything else, tell me, what do you mean by high growth engineer? I've heard about 10x engineers. What is a high growth engineer?
Yeah, I mean, there is overlap. Sometimes you could be a high growth and 10x. Sometimes, maybe you're just high growth, not 10x. But I think the core foundation is that you're constantly always trying to grow as fast as you can and just soak in as much knowledge wherever it is, not have a complacent mindset where you sort of accept that your current state of the world is, as it is, and you're always going to try and, even if you don't want to move to the next level in your career, you still want to grow either as an engineer or a person.
I think that's a great way of putting it, right? If I understood right, usually we ascribe the 10x engineer to someone who has extremely high skill, who has extremely high amount of productivity. They can get a lot of work done in shorter amount of time. But what you're describing as a high growth is it's not just about the technical skills, but more about understanding the context around you and then fueling it to growing your own knowledge, adding in additional, maybe skills to your arsenal, either it is personal or professional. It's more like a well-rounded engineer, not just from the skills point of view, but also from the characteristics like communication skills and business skills and things like that. Did I get that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's more of a mindset than a end state, because there never is an end state for high growth engineer. You just have that mindset and you're just constantly going to be growing.
I think that's a great quote, right? I mean, you're always growing and you need to think of always growing rather than plateauing at one place. I think that's a great way to put it. Jordan, let's talk more about you. You have started out at Gusto and famously reached from a new grad engineer to a senior engineer in less than 2 years, which is kind of almost unprecedented, even at an early stage startup like Gusto at the time. Tell me how did you achieve that? Is it all to do with skills? Is it all to do with your training? What is the context that led you to grow extremely at a rapid pace?
First, I guess I cheated a little bit because I had a little bit of experience as an intern beforehand, and I also worked at a crypto startup too for about a year, and that helped me really gain my technical skills. And I think that's kind of your foundation that you need to have in order to make impact consistently so you can actually achieve the senior level. But once you have those technical skills, then it comes down to the behaviors and what you decide to do with those technical skills, because you could just have technical skills and just do exactly what you're told and only that, you're not going to get promoted to senior that quickly if you just do that. So in my case, I would boil it down to probably two key things that I did. The first one was I felt like I exhibited extreme ownership. And so from that perspective, like anything that I saw that could be improved, I dove into it. I didn't view anything as being blocked by the fact that I'm a junior or mid-level engineer. I would always, bring ideas to the team or to my manager. I think within my first couple months, I had already proposed that we should have some way to like share knowledge with each other. And that led to the formation of the team learning hour, which ended up being something that stayed there for all the time, all the way until I got to senior. And I was the one that, was first able to lead that. And I think that really positioned me well to just one, like really learn a lot from all those discussions that were happening and being sort of the middle, mesh person or the glue, between everyone that was like organizing these things, everyone getting to know me and also being seen as a leader to be able to get promoted quickly there. And then the second thing is that I also, in general, rode the wave of whatever was happening at the company. So one of the first things that I rode the wave on was the GraphQL adoption. Gusto was a fairly early adopter of GraphQL, and there wasn't many people who knew about how it worked. So
Yeah.
as soon as I heard that we were going to be investing in that, I bought a book on it. And then I just like literally read it in like 2 days. And then I figured out how I could help with some of the things that we were trying to do. That then positioned me as, the go-to person for GraphQL and gave me like leadership position opportunities where I was the main one to drive the migration. That helped a ton in not only just highlighting the technical and leadership skills, but also just working cross-functionally and doing a lot of things that you wouldn't normally get the opportunity to do if you were kind of just hanging out doing what you're told.
Yeah, I think there are two things that really stood out to what you said, Jordan. One is displaying high agency, right? Which is, hey, you are taking control of what you want to do by being extremely present about what is happening around you and not just sticking to your lane and then doing what you're told to do, number one. Number two is you're also constantly trying to upskill yourself, not just upskilling, but then the learning hour that you spoke about, which basically you're trying to create an environment where everyone is trying to learn from each other and then grow as a team. I think one thing that I've seen missing in some really smart engineers is they would rather keep their heads down and then do their work. They may not be as willingly coming forward to share their knowledge with others or learn from each other. I think those two things that you spoke about really stood out for me as, hey, it's not just about you, but then how do you grow you as well, but also how do you take the team along with you as you grow through this upward journey. I think that's been fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about this Gusto journey and how did this Gusto to Pinterest happen?
Gusto to Pinterest. Well, there was technically a stop in between. So it was Gusto, then Qualified, then Pinterest. But I think at Gusto, I got promoted to senior and then I decided that I wanted to try something new because I was focused on product engineering a lot. So that's where I started to go into more like platform level engineering, switched to design systems. And I liked being on design systems, was learning a lot, but also it was largely already built, the whole design system. So it was more about maintaining it. And then I saw an opportunity at Qualified come along where I could be the person to set up the design system. So I thought that that would be a really good opportunity to, start from scratch and figure out what that takes. Made a good amount of progress there, but ultimately like a really good opportunity at Pinterest came up. So switched to Pinterest web platform. Web platform is like all the things. It is, literally like we have an insanely huge ownership area. Design system is like one of them, but I think the thing that I've really enjoyed so much is that ownership area is huge. Like we have multiple staff engineers on the team and we're, divided up into some of the different areas because it's just way too much for any one person to know. So it's been really enjoyable just like having a really good environment for, at any point, like I can dive deep into how our node, server works or how our like custom React rendering engine works, or like, and all of that is like very separate from a lot of the work that I'm doing on developer productivity. And I have like a decent level knowledge, but I can always, just learn from some of the other people on the team and switch things up if I want to, which is really nice.
Great. So you mentioned developer productivity. Can you drill a little bit deeper into what do you mean by developer productivity? Because one of the things that I always hear from my peers is, hey, how do you measure developer productivity at your company? And it seems like that mythical word everyone wants to do, but no one actually knows how to do it. Do you want to drill a little bit deeper about that developer productivity? How do you do that at Pinterest? And what are your learnings from your journey there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole measurement framework set up. I can, dive more into what it entails, but I would say at a high level, what I would recommend is not measuring your developers, but measuring your systems. So from our perspective, we don't measure developers individually. We measure the systems that developers use that make them productive or not productive if they're, performing poorly. And then that's what we optimize. So we're doing things at a platform level rather than saying, oh, this team of engineers needs to be like, shipping at a faster velocity or reviewing PRs faster or whatever. Like, so many teams and just individuals have different needs at any given point in time. One month I might ship literally like 25 PRs, and another month I might be writing an AI strategy doc where I ship like 3 PRs, and I barely have time for any coding. So it just doesn't make sense, to be measuring that stuff. That's where I think the vanity metrics come in with like lines of code too, and all that stuff. So we measure how fast does it take for someone to get a PR in a mergeable state, or like fully, all the checks are passing and things like that. How long does it take for someone to build their local dev environment? How long does it take for the PR that someone merged to get deployed to production so they can, just fully verify it? How many incidents are happening every week? All those types of things.
Very interesting. So as you grow through the journey, right, I'm sure thinking of developer productivity would have started only after you moved to platform engineering, right? But as an entry-level engineer or as a senior engineer who is not looking at, hey, developer productivity as a metric for the entire engineering org, but as an individual engineer, how would I contribute to this whole developer productivity as a system? How do I set up metrics? Do you want to share a little bit more nuances from the other side of the picture, not from the engineering leadership point of view, but from the individual engineer point of view? How can I contribute to that developer productivity?
Yeah, I would say two things. One is just bringing where the pain points are to be surfaced, because I did like a little test earlier. When was the last time that I spun up my local dev environment, where like I can sort of see like Pinterest.com, locally.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, I think, like 3.5 weeks ago or something like that. When I was doing product work, that was like I would be spinning it up like multiple times a day. And so you just sometimes you get out of touch on how developers are actually doing these things and how long certain aspects take. And like when I was spinning up my dev environment there, that's where some of the best features that I like had the idea for came. And so if you're able to have that mindset of like, I'm going through this, like how can this be better? And ideally, if it's something like better than just make it faster, please, like I think we generally from the platform perspective know that we should make things faster. But like one idea, for example, is I added a feature where when you spin up your local dev environment, because it takes like somewhere between like 1 and 3 minutes, at the end of it, you are going to automatically get a Slack message that tells you your dev environment is set up, and it gives you a direct link to basically open it up. And that saved people. Like I've gotten a ton of great feedback where people are like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I don't need to like stare at my terminal for a minute and a half while I wait for it to spin up. I can like, check email, check Slack or whatever, and then just, get my notification when it's done. So little things like that are really, really nice, I think, touches of improvements. And then the other thing is, if something is small enough where you can fix it yourself and just like check out the code, that would really be like I appreciate it so much from a platform perspective when someone is able to, make that improvement. I think it builds a bond where next time you suggest something that is, kind of like painful, like I'm going to feel for you a little extra more, and I'm going to go the extra mile to see if I can really like fix that and like, go out of my way, even if it's sort of, in between like 5 other things that I'm doing. I'm going to try to help you out because you helped me out. So I think those two things are really awesome if you can do that.
Yeah, again, I think this thing that you're talking about as an engineer is not just about complaining that, hey, my build is taking too long or spinning up a dev environment is taking too long. Rather, if you can understand, go deeper why it's happening, and then if you can contribute in a meaningful manner rather than just, moaning about it or bitching about it. If you can
Yeah,
take agency and then take matters into your own hands, I think it'd be a lot more helpful, not just for yourself, but for the entire team, because you're going to save a lot of time for the entire engineering team. Yeah, I think that's
100%.
a great way of. But the other point that you mentioned, where constantly trying to walk in the shoes of your customers, in this case, the fellow developers, I think it'll give you a first-hand flavor of what they're going through, and then it'll help you generate better output.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, speaking in the context of developer productivity and engineers, today we have seen there's a lot of these cursors and windsurfs and cloud codes and codexes, and they made the job of a developer writing code maybe faster and easier. What is your observation of is AI helping developer productivity in meaningful manner, or is just writing some code that developers don't even understand what it's doing, but then it's passing all the tests and they're okay to let it go through the prod? Like how is your experience been?
All the above. But yeah, I think it is making you more productive if you use it in the right way. Like, for example, I think 80% or more of my code is written by the agent, but at the same time, the guidance that I give is very specific. So one way that I like to think about it is whether you're operating in low control or high control mode. So low control mode is, let's say you want to build a feature, but you don't know how to do it, like from a coding perspective. So you kind of just ask the agent, like, build this feature, and you're sort of speaking like from a goal perspective. And like maybe eventually, agents are going to get there where they're going to do a really good job at all the aspects of this. But most of the time, they're going to do it in a way where you're not going to see things you expect. And the ideal scenario is where you operate in like high control mode, where you know the goal and you know exactly how it needs to be done, but it's more about just transferring that thought to the AI, and then letting the AI kind of be your
Assistant, if I may.
yeah, assistant, and sort of your conductor or something like that, of or conduit. It's conduit actually is the word. Your I haven't pulled that one out in a while. Your conduit for like typing it out essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
So it will just do the work of typing it, but you know exactly what needs to be done. And so that is going to make you faster because the AI can type 1,000 words per minute probably. So if you know exactly what to tell it, then you're going to be more productive. Another area where people might not be as productive is if they just are speaking to the AI and they're kind of just like watching it and waiting back and forth, and they're not really doing anything on the side like concurrently. So I think there was a study that came out from MIT where it was saying like, oh, people that are using AI agents, they are like as equally productive or less productive or something like that than people that aren't using them. And I think like the premise is kind of wrong, because while you're using AI, I'm like grabbing a coffee, like you can be doing other things in parallel. So it's not just that it's like typing versus sitting there and talking to the agent. Like I'm, helping my mentee at the same time as like I've just kicked off a really high quality prompt that's going to tell the agent like exactly what I want it to do. So, you have to use it effectively if you want to get value out of it and see those productivity gains. And I think it's going to be on engineers to try to help educate their other engineers, on the best ways to use it, because a lot of it is trial and error, and you got to figure out what is going to work and what doesn't. And it's, really helpful if you have that, if you could speak from like an experiential point of view on what did work or what didn't.
Yeah, I think there are two things that I picked up, Jordan. Is one is used a really great word called high control, where you are not just telling it what do you want to see, but then you're also giving it explicit instructions on how to do it. And then you're taking advantage of the AI engine's ability to spit out code at a much faster pace than you can. But you're still in control of the technical design or the architecture or how you want things to be done, based on your internal practices or based on what you think is the right thing to do for building that particular feature. So you still are in control. You're just using it as a way to shape out that particular thing in a much more faster manner. And
Exactly.
the second thing you brought about again is learning and sharing. Like you said, it is a constant trial and error. You may have done some experiments which may have given you better results, and then it helps if you can share your learnings with your fellow team members and they can incorporate doing the same, and then they can tell you what worked for them, and then collectively you can improve the whole way you can get the best out of these AI IDEs or AI engines or whatever you're using. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think this context of high control and agency and sharing and learning, it seems like a mindset that you spoke about at the beginning of the
Yeah.
conversation, that you're always thinking about this. I guess this does not change in the pre-AI era and the post-AI era. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just that AI is now giving you stronger capabilities, right? Like a lot of the mindset will stay the same, but you've now just unlocked a lot more capabilities with AI. I think that's also partially why I still advocate for thinking about the problems to solve from a problem first mindset versus like, hey, let's just apply, like throw AI at every situation. We should still look at what are developers complaining about, where are the slowest things that they have to deal with. And now you just have a new capability in your tool set where you could say, can I apply AI to this problem to solve it in some way versus, what are all the AI tools out there, and let's see like if we could just, use them. Doesn't matter if you're not actually
Yeah.
solving like a problem that you have. So yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And Jordan, one controversial question. So there are a section of people who keep saying that AI is going to replace human developers, at least at some levels, maybe entry level or up to a certain level. Do you see that happening based on your experience and based on your observations of what's happening around the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what replace means, because it may mean that there is less of a need in general of entry level developers. But at the same time, like if we just think about AI as a means for expanding everyone's capability, including entry level engineers, then it just means that you can now get more output of work done for any given person, that you hire. You're just now, you have more output of work that you could get done. And so if a company only needed a fixed output of work to be done, then yes, they need to hire fewer people. But if getting more work done now, per person is still beneficial to them as a company, then I think, it won't get rid of them. And I mean, from my perspective, like even though I consider myself like really good at using AI to get what I want, I still feel like a strong need for the engineers that I have that are working under me right now, and it's very helpful for them to be able to like I'm kind of delegating like AI usage to them too, because also like it takes time to use AI effectively. So I think it's probably no, they're probably not going to go away.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant perspective, Jordan. I totally agree with you. I don't think AI is going to replace the human engineer jobs. I think the companies will begin to realize that if they can get more done, they can solve more problems for their customers, they can increase their product surface area, and then they can go to adjacent markets. They can build different products. They can solve different problems. I think that's what will happen. I think in this, because we are still, I would still call it early stages of understanding and effectively using AI engines. We are just worried about all the ramifications that may happen. But I think once we realize that AI is actually a great helpful tool, I think we will see a lot more companies expanding into different areas, a lot more faster than what they would have otherwise done, rather than saying, okay, I only want to stick to this particular problem. Now I used to need 100 engineers. Now I just need 50 engineers. I don't think that's what is going to happen.
You see a lot more like one person companies that are able to achieve like a lot more, just
Yeah.
from one person because they're able to use AI effectively and all the different, systems that you need to run a company. But at the same time,
Yeah.
like they're going to be limited at some point. You can't run I mean, not that everyone wants to run like an Amazon, but you can't run an Amazon on one person for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to be limited to where, maybe within the millions, like low millions, I think, from
Yeah.
just one person alone.
Yeah, I think humans are still needed to think from the problem point of view. What is the right problem to be solved? Is this problem has to be solved at all for my customers? And what is the right way to solve this problem for my customer persona or for my users or for the product that I'm trying to build? And then you would leverage AI to get that job done. You can't just replace human engineers from the entire gamut of things that they're doing. I think you'll use humans more for their human intelligence going forward rather than using them for mundane things to be done. I think they'll delegate a lot of their mundane things to the AI and then they'll start doing more thinking going forward. At least that's my hypothesis anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean it takes time to figure out, like even with the help of AI, what is the intelligent decision that you want to move forward with. Like, for me, if I'm doing like a really high stakes migration, like I'm going to be having like a long conversation with AI, just sort of like helping it bounce ideas off of how we can approach this, what are the risks, all the things that could go wrong, and have it do research, and all that takes time. That's just one migration of like all 5,000 that Pinterest could be doing. So you need
Yeah,
more engineers for that.
I totally agree with you. And now we're on the topic of AI. How do you think an entry level engineer should be leveraging or thinking of leveraging AI in the context of, high growth engineering perspective?
Yeah, this is an interesting one and something I've personally like I want to learn more about. I'm not gonna claim I'm an expert because I'm not in that position anymore, and I think it's a very interesting dynamic where a lot of people are coming up into their first software engineering job with this like, you know, it's like having like 5,000 Swiss Army knives like at your fingertips. And how does that mean that you learn some of these fundamentals while using the tool effectively in a way to like meet the expectations of the job too? So it's tricky because I've also have engineers, like entry level engineers that I work with, and I try to teach them how to use AI effectively. And I'm constantly thinking about that, just making sure that like they're really learning the fundamentals behind it too. So I generally tell them to always ask the AI like why do you believe that, or what is your like more of understanding your thinking behind it, so that way they're not just getting whatever the answer is but also understanding how did the AI think of that, and also when the AI lies to you too, because sometimes like if you just ask it why, it's gonna be like, actually, I think I made a mistake in the previous thing, because it'll just
Yeah.
spit out like, it just wants to give you an answer so badly that it kind of just like rushes at things. Yeah, and I think one tricky part that I'm also trying to figure out is, does it make sense for engineers, like entry level engineers, to be like writing the code manually, like basically do a ask questions only and then write the code manually? Or is it okay, like if you talk with the AI and you're thinking with it enough that you just ask it like to write it out, basically be more efficient on like from a typing perspective at that point. I wish I had better answers here, but I'm
Yeah.
still thinking about it to figure that out.
I think you put it very well, right? Like you want to make sure that the entry-level engineers are not losing the opportunity to learn just because they are leveraging AI to get some of the work done for them. They just need to get this balance right between using them and also making sure that they're learning and then growing their skill set over a period of time, because you don't want them to short-term succeed but then long-term fail at their jobs. So yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. So, Jordan, tell me more about the High Growth Engineer newsletter. Like, why did you start this newsletter? What inspired you to do it?
Ooh, yeah, that one it's been a while ago now, so need to remember. Yeah, I think at the time I was learning on the job, but then outside of work, I think I was kind of like bored and I didn't really know what to do. And I remember that at Gusto, one of the things that I had done was I set up this learning channel where I wanted to learn more about front end, and I set up like Slack channel. And then as I was learning more about front end, I was like taking these courses. I would literally just like share my notes, like rather than note taking in like a personal note taking app, I shared it in that Slack channel. And then over time, a lot of people joined and then started sharing their own notes too. And then they would respond to mine. And it almost kind of became like a little like, learning community where, everyone was helping each other learn about this stuff, even if it wasn't like directly applicable to your job. So after Augusto, I kind of lost that a little bit. And, I switched to qualified, and I wanted to continue like learning more, but not necessarily things that are like directly about what I'm doing on the job. I made a LinkedIn post where I think it was just sort of sharing one of the things that I know about front end, and it got like 35 likes, and I thought that was like insane, at the time because it was my first post. So I just kept on doing it, and then eventually got to post where it was like 100 likes, 200 likes, 300 likes, and I was like, okay, maybe I have something here. So I turned it into a newsletter, and ever since then, I've just really appreciated how much I have personally learned from everything that I write, because writing helps you think through
Yeah.
everything that you know and you think sometimes
Yeah.
like sometimes I'm like I want to write about this topic, and then I get like a couple sentences in, I'm like, oh wow, actually I don't know enough about this topic to write it all. I need to do like
Yeah.
more learning so I can actually like share something with the world. And then that helps me. It really helps like expose your knowledge and like solidify it. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's made such a huge difference in
Yeah.
me on the job as well, because I've become, I've been able to use a lot of the things that I teach, and also it's helped me become a lot better writer. I was terrible. I hated English in school, but somehow I became, a newsletter author. And yeah, it's helped me a lot with all the forms of writing which engineers have to do, especially as you get higher in
Yeah.
levels. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, writing actually clarifies your thoughts like nothing else, right? I mean, it just makes you think through all the angles because you're putting things down in a perspective. When you're rereading things, you may change your own opinion, or you will double down on some of the opinions. And I actually wish a lot more engineers inculcate the habit of writing things down, even for themselves, right? And I wish even more engineers would share those writings with other engineers. Good, bad, doesn't matter, but just the process of writing things down and sharing things with others helps them grow far more effectively than bottling it all down into their own mind. So
Yep.
yeah, and first of all, it's
Absolutely.
very brave for you to openly create this learning channel where you started this habit of sharing things. Again, I guess it all starts from there.
Yeah, one addition I would say too is even better than writing is doing presentations if it's at work,
Yeah,
because that is one of the best ways to, I mean, one, just get practice on a skill that engineers don't get practice on a lot, which is, speaking with your voice and doing it in a way that doesn't make people fall asleep. But also, it's one of the best ways to become known for something almost immediately. Like, even a lot of times, even if people do fall asleep with your presentation, that's okay, because they just know, like, oh yeah, you gave a talk on this thing, so you probably know about it. And you're able to become like a go-to person for that, which is one of the best ways to get more opportunities and
yeah.
meet more people, grow a lot more, and ultimately get promoted if you care about that.
Yeah. One of the articles you wrote about is this one-pager docs, right? I wish everyone started doing one-pager docs because I think that can be the easiest way to inculcate the habit of writing things down, and it'll help them. I mean, their future selves will thank them for doing that because no one remembers why we did certain things 2 years back.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, there's a lot of great things that you're putting things down in your newsletter. I would say thank you so much for the newsletter that you started and then continuing that journey.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I
Um,
really appreciate that.
No, yeah, it's really brilliant. So moving on, how do you see the future of developer productivity? How do you see the future looks like for both the entry-level engineers, but also engineering managers and directors? How does the world change, do you think, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think a lot of it still boils down to fundamentals, and the tooling and the landscape is going to change, and those will probably make tweaks to things. But overall, I'd say like three things will probably stay the same. One is that you should listen to your developers about what problems they're complaining about. And then two is that you should understand like where they're spending the most time, because sometimes they may complain about things and it might not be where they spend the most time. And there might be like a bigger opportunity even on something that they're not complaining about. So for example, like maybe it takes, I don't know, like 10 minutes for their PR to get in like a mergeable state for like all the builds to pass. They're complaining about, I don't know, some random like warning message that shows up on their local dev environment. It's like you could get away with that for a while. But then like something, you notice an opportunity where that 10-minute build time, which maybe they're okay with, can be cut down by like full 50%. And that is something that maybe they're not complaining about, but you could just optimize, and that's like a lot bigger improvement than fixing that random error message. And then kind of along the same lines of that is the third thing is just looking out for what are the new things that are coming and ways that you can incorporate things that, again, like may not be something that people are complaining about, but are just like big opportunities. This is where I would say like be cautious. Like for me, I do like problem first mindset for around like 70% of things. And then 30% of things is trying to look toward what are some like big things that people just might not realize that they want. Kind of like the whole like iPhone concept where like people might have not asked for an iPhone. People probably would not have asked for like a coding agent, assistant in their IDE. But if there's something like that out there, like, yeah, we got to incorporate that because people are coding. Like, for me, I'm getting out like probably 10 PRs per week or something like that.
Wow.
So it's, a huge productivity boost that you got to like try to find a way to incorporate and keep your eye out for stuff like that rather than just looking at the problems.
Jordan, on the other side of the equation, right, which is, hey, how do you take care of the helping your engineers get to their optimal productivity, making sure that you're focusing on the right things to improve and solving problems for them rather than chasing after everything that they complain about. The way it feels like everything comes down to two things. One is the problem first mindset, which is pick the right problem to solve and then solve it well. And the second is have extremely high agency, stop complaining and then start doing things to fix things. I think these things are great takeaways, at least for me in this conversation, and I hope it's the same thing for everyone who's listening in. Jordan, one last question. If there is only one advice that you need to offer to someone who is going through the situation where they feel that they're not growing much, but they want to make a change, what would you recommend you help them do so that they can change that situation?
I think if the situation is that at your current role you are not growing much, always ask like what is from the point of high agency, right? There's a ton of things that are within your control that you can still do to be growing. It might not be necessarily the areas that you thought you would be growing in, but you can still be growing a ton. Like if what you're saying to yourself is that, oh, my manager isn't giving me, this like next big project, find a way to like propose a big project that makes such a good case that your manager can't say no. And then like you have to be, the person. Now, if your manager is someone where they're just like ultra toxic and you do all that and they're like, all right, I'm going to go give it, to someone else, then, that's like I got to switch jobs time. but there's always areas where you could be growing, even if like you feel like you're not being given those opportunities. I think it goes back to high agency, trying to figure out how you can be the change that you want to see. Ultimately, it seems like the opportunities are going to be better at another company. Then that's something definitely worth exploring too. And but also just don't give up immediately too. Try to figure out a way to make it work and then ultimately switch if you feel like there's just not going to be progress happening.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that advice, Jordan. I think a lot of people either give up too easily or they only keep complaining rather than do something about it. But if they put in some amount of effort to articulate their frustration with their manager, I'm sure there'll be opportunities for them to grow where they are in the areas that they would like to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jordan. It was really, really brilliant. Not just reading your newsletters, but actually sharing thoughts and some of the perspectives that you shared today. It was really great having you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ravi. It was really great being here. It was awesome meeting you. And yeah, I really appreciated the discussion.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.